Today we're going to talk about lesson 9.8, which is multiplying decimals. And I know we've come across this a couple of times, or at least a few of you have in class, and you've kind of had a little panic attack. You're like, there's a decimal. What do I do? So I'm going to show you how we're going to multiply decimals today. That's going to be our focus. And you might be asking, why? Well, think about it. You're going to come in contact probably with money on a daily basis. Money has decimals in it, so that's kind of a really important thing to know how to do. And there's lots of different jobs that you would use decimals depending on what it is that you want to do for a living, all the way from construction to accounting to just any kind of bookwork or anything to do with money. So just depends on what you want to do, and all of you are probably going to have your own bank account at some point, so you're probably going to need to come in contact with decimals quite frequently, if I could spit my words out. Anyway, so how do we do it? Well, I've got 3 different ways that I'm going to show you how to do it today. One way involves estimating, one way involves lattice, which I know some of you like, and another way is just a very simple method that I used when I was in school, and I thought I'll just throw it in there, and you can kind of decide, as we've talked about in class. We always pick the method that works best for us, so you're going to pick whichever method works best for you or that you like the best and that you get the correct answers with, of course. So we're going to start with the estimate method, and I've got an example here of 11 times 2 8/10. And basically what you're going to do is you're just going to round that problem out and forget about the decimal to start with. So I'm going to say, and there's a couple of different ways you could round it, but if we say 11 times 3, and you might be wondering, where did I get that 3? Well, if I asked you what the closest whole number is, if we had 2 8/10, the closest whole number would be the number 3. So that's where that came from. So 11 times 3 equals 33. Now, the reason that I'm estimating is because I'm going to try to figure out where to put that decimal point after I get finished. So we estimate the problem, and then we actually multiply without the decimal. So we're going to do 8 times 1 is 8. 8 times 1 is 8. Put my 0 to mark my spot. 2 times 1 is 2. 2 times 1 is 2. We add those up. 8, 10, and 3. Now, I get 308 as my answer. Now remember, that doesn't have a decimal point in it. Now comes the time when we're going to look back at the estimate that we did to start with. So my estimate was 33. My answer was not in the 300s, was it? It was in the 30s. So that means that it would make most sense for me to put my decimal point right here. Okay? So this is one method that you can use, and basically we're rounding this decimal, turning it into a whole number, getting an estimate as to something close to what our real answer would be, and then we're multiplying the real numbers without the decimal point, multiplying it out, and then I got that big 308, and that made me look back at my original estimate so I could figure out that, oh, my answer must be in the 30s, not in the 300s. So that's how I decided where to put that decimal point. So that's one method that you can use. If we take a look at the next method, this is where we're going to use lattice. And this one can be tricky if you don't quite get your fingers in the right place. But basically what we're going to do, you'll notice that I have very similar problems side by side, except there's a decimal point here in both of those numbers, but this one does not have a decimal point, and this one does. So I want you to watch how I'm going to do this so you can figure out where that decimal point goes. So basically, since there is no decimal point in this number, I am going to take my pencil, and this is where my decimal point is, and it's going to come down and follow, and I'm going to try to make this a little bit thicker here. It's going to follow that lattice line, and it's going to go right here. Okay? So we're basically going to multiply this out like we do normally. 2 times 3 is 6. 6 times 4 is 24. 4 times 2 is 8. And then we're going to add on the diagonal like we normally do. 10 and 18. Regroup. 6, 7, 8. And this is 0. And my decimal point, as you can see, is going to follow down to the end of this line here. And so my answer would be 88 and 4/10. Okay? If we go over here, this time we have a decimal point here and a decimal point here. So basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to go across this line with this finger, down this line with this finger. They're going to meet right here in the middle. So this basically is going to come to here. This is going to come to here where they meet. That tells me that my decimal point is going to come out right here. And I'm going to place it there. Okay? So then we multiply just like we did before. 3 times 2 is 6. 24. And 8. We add on the diagonal once again. Regroup. So now, this time, since I have 2 decimal places, my answer turns out just a tad bit different because we have 2 decimal places. So with this one, with only 1 decimal place, notice I have 1 decimal place in my answer. This would be a decimal place, and this would be a decimal place. 2 decimal places. Notice there are 2 decimal places in my answer. So one time we get 88 and 4/10. Another time we get 8 and 84/100. So this is using the lattice method. We're basically just following the line with our decimal point. Here, if we have 2 of them, we're coming to where they intersect, and then we're going to follow that lattice line out. This one, there was no intersection, so we just came straight down. Okay, now for our last method, we're going to do counting the decimal places. And basically, you could do this and set it up just like I have here, where I have 3 and 6/10 and 4 and 3/10. Or I could multiply it out just like this without the decimal places and then add them in at the end. But I'm going to leave them in. So I'm going to go ahead and multiply. 3 times 6 is 18. 3 times 3 is 9, plus 1 is 10. Put my 0 to mark my place. 4 times 6 is 24. 4 times 3 is 12, plus 2 is 14. We're going to add those together. 8, 4, 5, 1. Now, here's the part where you're going to decide where that decimal point goes. I have 1, 2 decimal places. So I'm going to start here, and I'm going to count 1, 2. Decimal point goes right there. Okay? That's the way I learned. So, as you can see, you've got 3 different methods that you can choose from, whichever one you think works best for you. And go with the one where you get the correct answer, of course. And if you want to kind of try your own problems to practice some of those at home, that might be a good idea, just to kind of see how to do it. Maybe change the numbers a little bit and see if you can figure it out. All right? I'll see you in class.